Good evening, everyone. This is Patricia, and I am traveling for history. I'm at Lakeview Cemetery this evening in Burlington, Vermont, and in front of us is the Howard Memorial. And let me see if I can pan in for you so you can see what it says there. That's the best my phone will do. But pan back out. This is an Egyptian obelisk on here, and that is the sign of a symbol of everlasting life. The Howards, now for locals, if you're thinking Howard Street, ding, 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 you are correct. Howard Street was named for this family. Now, I think it was this morning I posted a video on the children's graves who were children at the Home for Destitute Children. Same Howard family. Louisa Howard is buried here as well. His sister. This is Daniel Howard and John P. Howard, who are listed on the front. So I am primarily going to be talking about John Howard, but it's good to know that Daniel is buried here. He was the older brother. And his sister Louisa, parents are buried here. There's a few family members buried here. So, start with Daniel. Oops. If you hear crunching and crackling, it's because I am about to read some from paperwork here. So Daniel Dyer Howard was born on July 3, 1801. And died in Geneva, Switzerland on March 29, 1871. He was 69 and is buried here. His occupation was a hotel keeper, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. He did marry a woman named Delia Carpenter, the daughter of a Colonel John Carpenter of Hoosac, New York, and they had a child named Fanny. So some of that I'm going to be reading from is a genealogy I found online. And another piece I'm going to be reading from is from alpinerestorationvt.com, and that's more specific to a bust of John Howard. And then there's Louisa Howard, who was born on July 2, 1808 in New York, and died in Burlington on March 23, 1886. She was 77 years old, and she's buried here. She never married. And if you watched the one about the children's graves, I did talk about her somewhat in that video. And just to give you an idea of how generous she was, she supported primarily charities that supported children and women. In fact, she liquidated a debt the Home for Destitute Children owed with a gift of $4,500. And that was in the 1880s, I believe. So in the description below, I am going to give you what those amounts are in today's dollars, to give you an idea. She also provided, at a cost of $6,000, a beautiful Gothic chapel at the entrance of Lakeview Cemetery, which I've already done a video on, so you can look at that too. I do know that the value of the current dollars of that would be $157,100. So it's quite a big jump. She also endowed 5 free scholarships to the university, that would be at the University of Vermont, by a gift of $5,000. And one of her latest donations, and latest, mind you, this I'm quoting from the genealogy, was to fund for the poor of the St. Paul's Episcopal Church. I also covered that in a recent video. That was the one with urban renewal and St. Paul's Cathedral. And then there is John Purple Howard. I'll explain why he was named Purple in just a few minutes. He was born June 3, 1814 in Burlington and died in Malvern, England on October 10, 1885. He was 71 and buried here at Lakeview Cemetery. He was also a hotel keeper. He was Episcopalian, same church, St. Paul's Cathedral, and a public benefactor. And you're going to hear quite the list of things he spent his money on. So, at the age of 15, he left Burlington to join his oldest brother, Daniel, in New York City. Daniel was in charge of the Exchange Hotel, which was situated where the Stock Exchange now stands in New York City. They assumed direction of the famous Irving House on Broadway. Its celebrity was increased by their entertainment of Jenny Lind, the quote-unquote Swedish Nightingale. In fact, business was so darn good that by 1852, which would put him at about 38 years old, he retired and then moved to Long Island. Then after he moved to Long Island, he traveled the world. So, some things that Mr. Howard supported. He eventually returned to Burlington, Vermont, and once he did, he gave a gift of $50,000 for endowing the professorship of natural history, and then. Let's see. All right. So he funded the construction of a new medical college building. It was the predecessor to Dewey Hall. He endowed the chair in natural history and zoology for $50,000. The fountain on the green. And in 1885, renovation/facelift for Old Mill. They created the building's Victorian facade that we know today. There is a bust of him at the Old Mill. And before you think that he did that himself, commissioned to have a bust made in bronze for himself, no. The citizens of Burlington ponied up the money in appreciation of all he did for them. So, also, he had a bronze statue of General Lafayette erected also on the green. It's in quote-unquote heroic size in front of the college, and that cost about $25,000. And what else did this generous man do? So there's a building on Church Street that old-timers, and since I've been here for 44 years, I fall under that category of old-timers, known as the Howard Opera House. Now, it hasn't been an opera house in, since 1904. I'm not that old, thank you. That said, for those of us who've lived here a long time, we would know that building as the site of Megram's department store. How many remember the elevator guy, right? He's dead now too, by the way, the elevator man. Anyway, it's kind of funny. My stepfather had worked there in the men's department, but it's just amazing, the longer you live someplace. So he had the Howard Opera House built, which is an entire block. It was valued at $125,000, and he transferred it, the ownership of it, to the manager of the Home for Destitute Children. That is quite a gift. And understand, this is pre-income taxes. So no tax break on that. Since he belonged to the St. Paul's Protestant Episcopal Church, He gave to the parish of St. Paul's an elegant stone chapel, which cost over $10,000. Now, that church burned to the ground in 1971. In fact, the 50th anniversary of that was in February this year. He donated 3 elegant fountains to city parks. He also, I believe the fountains that were here were his, that he donated to this place. The Howard Opera House was built in 1878, 1879. In its heyday, the Opera House was recognized as one of the finest theatrical auditoriums in the country. The final curtain at the Howard Opera House rang down on the evening of November 30, 1904. One interesting story about the Howard Opera House has to do with some elephants that were needed for a production. I want to say it was Aida, but maybe don't quote me on that. Anyway, they were transporting these elephants to Burlington on the Ticonderoga. You can see the Ticonderoga at the Shelburne Museum. It's a beautiful steamship. It transported people from New York to Burlington back and forth, and I think they had an overnight venture as well. But one of the elephants was too tall, so that elephant was forced to kneel on that first level deck for the entire voyage across the lake. Interesting little side note there. Anyway, all in all, John Purple Howard donated about between $450,000 and $500,000, and this would be in 1880 something money. One more story about him. His middle name, Purple. Now, in the mid-2000s, Preservation Burlington had put together a tour of Lakeview Cemetery. I served as president at that point of the organization, and as president, I got to lead the first tour. Now, here's the thing when you're leading a tour for a nonprofit. The first tour often has most of the members on it. It just does. I won't actually say the name of the person who told me this, but she was a ranking member of the Chittenden County Historical Society. A lot of their members are members of Preservation Burlington as well. She said her father, well, actually, let me back up a little bit. We're on the tour, and she says, "Do you know how he got his middle name Purple?" "No." "Do tell." She said, well, her father had delivered him, and when he was born, he was purple. And that's how he got his middle name. Oh, I love that story. All right, so let's take a walk around this marker here and a look at who these folks are, if we can read them, because this got this green stuff on them. I don't know what that stuff is. If you do, please put it in the comments below. It's kind of overcast here. This place does close at dusk. So on this front here we see what I was reading from. Daniel D. Howard, Dyer Howard, John P. Howard. I love how beautiful the engravings are on here. And as I come around to the side, this is John Howard. Huh. Now this is interesting. Oh, this would be his father. Come around. There's nothing on the backside. But notice, it kind of looks like steps going up, doesn't it? Maybe something to do with that obelisk of eternal life. And coming around to the side here, Sidney S. Howard, another family member, Hannah Louisa Howard, age 77 years, 8 months, died in 1886. This is his sister. Anyway, I really wanted to share all of this with you because This family is so fascinating to me. Absolutely tremendous. How generous all of them were. All three. I've talked about Daniel, John, and Louisa. So I hope you find them as interesting as I. I always hope too that it spurs people to want to do some more research. But even if you don't, I do. So thanks so much for coming with me today. I appreciate it. And you know the drill. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let's share our love of history with everyone we know. Because we know we're not the only ones who find history fascinating, interesting, and so much more than politics and wars. It's about all of us. On that note, you have a great evening, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye.